I'll just be honest with you. I'm scared, folks, as we come into the year 2011, it is scary to me to see. You know, I've been on the road, Carol and I, as full-time evangelists, crisscrossing this country now for 33 years. I can never remember a time that I am more concerned and more afraid for our movement and for our churches than I am right now. I am saying what I'm going to say this morning without any fear, what anybody thinks or says, because, folks, listen, I've come to the place I don't really care anymore what people think. I'm here to tell you, brother, we can't play games. This is serious stuff. And if you're going to sit here and you're going to be offended, then just bite your lip, because you're going to hear something, I hope, if anything, will make you think down deep inside, what do you really have? Do you have some little carved Jesus that you've made? Or do you have the biblical Jesus? Now, with that said, let's do some comparisons this morning. Is everybody with me? All right. The politically correct Jesus, this American Idol Jesus, has such a difference than the biblical Jesus that we read in the Scripture. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. The American Idol Jesus doesn't want anybody to be afraid of God, nor of God's authority as a judge, because God is a loving God and would never bring condemnation upon anyone. The American Idol Jesus teaches that fearing God is unhealthy and it's unwholesome, and that it is nothing more than merely showing reverence or respect to God. However, folks, the biblical Jesus warns that fearing God is much more than reverence. It is actually a holy dread. Look it up in the Greek. The biblical Jesus taught that we are to fear God by realizing the fact that God is not only able to kill us, but that He would just as easily cast us into hell, and that fearing God will cause us to change our attitude about the sin in our lives. Now, I know some of you go, ooh, that, you just cringe when you heard me say that. The reason why is because you got your little carved Jesus. I got news for you. I want to read to you from the Bible what I just said and prove to you what I just said is absolutely what the biblical Jesus does. It says in Luke chapter 12, verse 4, "But I say unto you, my who? Friends." Notice He didn't say this to His enemies. He didn't say this to people He hated. He said this to people that He considered dear to Him. "I say this to you, my friends. Be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more they can do." Don't be afraid of them, people. "But I will forewarn you." Notice the wording there. He didn't say, "I will tell you." No, He says, "I will forewarn you." In other words, I am going to warn you ahead of time who you should fear. Fear Him, which after He hath what? Killed. After He hath killed, hath the power to cast into where? Yea, I say unto you, fear Him. Now, I got news for you. That's not politically correct today. You don't talk about God killing anybody. And certainly you don't talk about God sending anybody to hell. At best, God does, He lets you decide if you go to hell or not. Well, the fact is, that's not what the Jesus of the Bible taught. Another interesting thing about this, the American Idol Jesus doesn't like to scare people by even discussing hell, as it might offend people who don't believe in hell. Or it might upset some because studies have proven that preaching on hell will hinder your church growth movements. And that's what it's all about, right? That's what this new American Idol Jesus is about, church growth. So that's why you don't talk about it. Matter of fact, the American Idol Jesus wants to spend more time dealing with less offensive topics and deal more with uplifting themes and messages. However, the biblical Jesus dealt more with the subject of hell than any other single subject. The biblical Jesus gave very graphic descriptions of hell, only because he loved us enough to warn us of this horrible place reserved for those who persist in their disobedience and rebellion against God. Matter of fact, his love for people forces him to talk about hell. Then you have to ask yourself, is it really a message of love to avoid hell? Are these guys really being loving by not talking about hell? That's like going to a doctor who is an expert on cancer, but he's a loving doctor, and if you got cancer, he ain't going to tell you about it. Because he's a loving doctor, and he doesn't want to offend you or make you feel bad. Now, of course, he can take care of it, but he doesn't want to tell you about it because it may upset you. How much sense does that make? And if that doesn't make sense in the medical world, ladies and gentlemen, how does that make sense in the world of reality? Are y'all with me? Matthew 13, the Son of Man shall send forth his angels. They shall gather out of his kingdom all that what? Offend. I'll tell you, that's who needs to be offended, is the people that offend God. And them that do iniquity. And shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth, grinding of teeth. So shall it be in the end of the world. The angel shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just. Ooh, sever, that's kind of a little harsh there, don't you think, Jesus? And shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. In Matthew 25, then shall he say also to them on his left hand, imagine God saying these words to any human being, depart from me. That would be hell right there. Have you ever had somebody that you really love says, just get out, just get away from me, get out of my face? Imagine God saying that to you. Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire prepared, not for you, but for the devil and his angels. But that's where you're going to go. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. You know, that doesn't sound really politically correct to me. That doesn't even sound attractive. Well, if we started just preaching on that today, we'd lose people. The reason why is because we don't want a biblical Jesus. We want an American Idol Jesus. Come on, stick with me. The next thing is that the American Idol Jesus claims that no one can be saved, or that one can be saved and on their way to heaven, even if they'd never really become a disciple by making Jesus Lord. Matter of fact, the American Idol Jesus doesn't teach it that way. Lordship is seen as an optional step for those who really want to commit themselves. Now listen how the reasoning goes with the American Idol Jesus that we've created now. First, you accept Jesus as your Savior, but when you become really serious, then you accept Jesus as your Lord. You ever heard that before? You know that's not in the Bible, don't you? That's the American Idol Jesus. Stick with me. The biblical Jesus teaches that being a follower of his is being his disciple. That's what it means. Having Jesus as Savior and as Lord is indistinguishable. Everyone look up here for a second. The biblical Jesus never taught that he could be your Savior any other way than by him being your Lord. Watch this. The biblical Jesus never taught such a thing as an uncommitted, unsurrendered, or casual Christian. Matter of fact, what we had today show you how we've made a new American Idol Jesus if we've come up with what I like to call a casual cafeteria Christianity.